Welcome to Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed. I am Juliette Hahn. I'm here with my co-host, Brent Sopel, and we are here to change the narrative. We want to educate, but we also want you guys to understand what it is like to be dyslexic and how things can change. So join us every week for Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed. Welcome back to Word Blindness. This is Juliette Hahn. I am here with my co-host, Brent Sopel. How are you, darling?
Oh, boy. Where do we start?
I know. Well, we wanted to unload on Brad's episode. The last couple of days, you've also had some really interesting calls and messages. We got a lot of really good feedback from Brad's episode, a lot of really great feedback.
Well, credit to him, right? That wasn't easy.
Because that wasn't easy.
Yeah, and then, obviously you've been vulnerable on here too, showing emotion, crying. You've come a long ways, but, mental health and, guys, everybody always talk about that. So for him to, come on and say the things he said right away, it's, what do they say? Women say 30,000 words a day. We say 10,000. And out of those 10,000, we're wrong of 5,000. So again, courageous for him to say that, to start that and show that vulnerability. And once you show that vulnerability is when you start healing. So that was obviously kudos to him, for doing it, and you shedding a few tears along the way.
Oh my God. And then I re-listened to it and I cried again. I was like, oh my God, and I think it's just what you said, that vulnerability, but like what did he say? He goes, I wanted to cancel like 5 or 6 times. I mean, he said that. He was like, there was like times where I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. But what he did was, and this is what I think is beautiful, and this is what you do every freaking day, is it's not about you. And that's what he said. He's like, I had to take it out of his own, like, this is not about me. This is about who I can help. And I mean, that's what you've done the work and thought that, for so many years, right? It's like, it's not about you. It's your story is to heal other people. And that's one of the reasons why we do this, podcast, because it's these stories that connect with people. I mean, I say it all the time, stories connect us, and they really, really do. And the fact that he was so open, like, I'm really uncomfortable. I didn't want to talk about this. I mean, and he got choked up a number of times. Yeah. And then the message we got afterwards was, I said to him, your episode's out. I said, and it's okay if you don't want to re-listen. Some people don't like to re-listen, but it could be a good thing if you re-listened. I re-listened to it. Just let you know, I cried again, pretty much at the same parts. And it could be healing, but again, no pressure. And he did. He said he re-listened. He's like, it was really hard, almost as hard as doing it. He goes, but you've given me the space and you've made me think of things really different. And I'm now approaching things really different just because of that.
When you re-listen to yourself, early on, first couple second times, you're hearing your voice, like, oh, like nails on a chalkboard when you got to listen to your own voice. Like when I was, doing media stuff, I'm like, no, I don't want to listen to my fucking voice. All that. Arr! So, I don't think he's listening to voice. So that was probably a kick in the teeth. But the one thing that he said was, I hope this helps. It's anybody in this community, just flipping your beads. It's not, you're okay. No, we're not. And it's not a hope. I guarantee it's going to impact people and change lives for him doing that. And we talk about this, every time we're on here, obviously rate and review, but share. My story, I'm not vulnerable. People always use that word with me. I'm open and honest because I know I'm not the only one. It's, here 10 o'clock in the morning, 20 after 10. I know there's kids sitting in the classroom and it just brings me back. So I'll tell my story truthfully, honestly, every single day, a million times a day, because it's going to land on somebody's heart. It's going to hit them exactly like Brad did. And save lives. We can go down the spectrum of, obviously heart and stroke and cancer and epilepsy and, learning disorders and autism, People have no idea how many suicides happen because of dyslexia or,
Yeah.
you know, dysgraphia or ADHD when you can't commit. And, you know, this weekend that you talked about, I had somebody reach out to me on Instagram, and he was actually with a guy I used to play with when I was 16 and 17.
I love it.
An absolute legend he was. Julio was his nickname. So I said, you know, here's my number. Text me. That was Saturday night. Text me on Sunday. He texted me. I call him. You know, talk for 45 minutes. You know, he went to college in the U.S. for golf. He's back in Canada. You know, coaching hockey. And he's like, I have this dyslexic kid. Can you help me? We talked for 45 minutes, and he just couldn't believe what I was telling him. How to coach a kid and what it means, and how to do drills with him, how to show him. He was almost speechless for 45 minutes because he had no idea. And he came from the golf world. Then we got into golf, and he was just mind blowing. So going back to that's my purpose. That's why I always say reach out, because I don't care who you are. I know what it is to struggle every fucking day, and it ain't easy. But the more we talk about it, the more open we're out. Autism, where autism was, 20 years is where we are now. So to change the world ain't easy, right?
Mm-hmm. No, and I love that. And I mean, and the thing is, I mean, even I shared with you today in yoga, like I could not get this one pose because we added blocks and I couldn't, my brain wouldn't go there. Now, a number of years ago, that probably would have made me feel really shitty. I would have brushed it off and been like, okay, whatever. But I can kind of giggle about it. And I actually had to say to the teacher, I don't understand what you're saying. And it literally was just doing the same pose, but putting blocks under my ass and my leg. And I just, for some reason, the left and the right, and I couldn't do it. And afterwards I said to her, and an acquaintance is in my class, one of my friends, and she's like, I could see you're giggling. She goes, and I know that you're comfortable with it now. She goes, so it was funny to watch. And I was like, I know it was funny. I was like, she's saying left and right, and your left leg, your right, what, and I could not do it. And I literally became paralyzed. And again, in a different time in my life, I would have been really frustrated and probably defeated for a second and gotten out of my head and been like, ugh. But because we talk about it and we've made it okay. And again, we've talked about, the years that I've done work and I've made it okay number of years, but there's always certain situations where it still comes back and gets us. Couldn't say that.
Why?
Just like you were right before you mentioned test, and I got this, like, I literally, I felt like someone punched me in the chest, and I was like, oh my God, oh, he said test. And I got like massive anxiety because I was like, oh shit, there's 2 things I still need to do for Montgomery. And I started speeding up. I was like, okay, I got to take a breath. Those kind of things take us down. And if people out there, that happens all the time. And if you're a kid and you don't know how to, kids go through so many different things, and those little things that just kind of add up, it makes your day shitty, and it's not good. So yes, the conversations, and go ahead.
No,
there you go.
As much as frustrated as let's just use a teacher as an example. You're frustrated that the kid you can't do whatever. Try being our brains when we can't. We beat ourselves up 10 times more. I get parents saying and kids, your procs are boring, or this is stupid. My brain can't handle it. Right, you go there, take a left, you go down here, take a left, you spin around, do a loop-de-loop, come back, then you do this, and 65 things of this. I lost you. I don't know. I can't hear. I don't know what one word you just said. When I talked to the guy yesterday, I can only do 2 steps. 1, 2. Go here, pick up this. Anything after that, I'm gone. So try being a kid going, okay, I got to remember. Okay, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. I can't. Oh, no, I can't. No, I'm getting out of that. Fuck.
But one of the things that you also said and which is so important, and this is where it is lost. So yes, the steps, like multi-dimensional steps, multi-step steps, whatever. But when you coach, it is about the basics. That's when you get as good as you can, because those basics, when you strengthen those basics, the smallest things, that's when your game grows. And so many coaches, and I mean, and I shouldn't say that so many, I just know there's so many people out there, like so a kid's like, oh, that's boring. No, but you're strengthening so many things that's just going to take their game to the next level. And that's lost because everything, I mean, and we've talked about this so many times, everything is about, their parents are scrutinizing. I mean, it's really hard to be in any kind of teaching, coaching, all of these things because of parents now, helicoptery, whatever, the last, 10, 20 years, whatever it is. And so if you think about it, when you strengthen those little things, I mean, that's like the 10,000 hour. I mean, that goes all the way back to fundamentals. If you can't skate, right, correctly, if you do not have a solid skate, your game is not going to get to that next level because you're not going to be able to go as fast as you can. You're not going to be able to do the turns. Now, I obviously don't know skating, so you can laugh, but I can take it to yeah.
Details. I always say, it's the details.
Yeah.
But, obviously you talk, Truman basketball and soccer. It's the details. If you don't have the details,
those kids better.
100%. In our, where I'm, coaching in Hoffman, all the parents, I get told all the time, you got no idea how you're coaching. Most of the coaches in that rank in the Timberwolves, they're terrible. They want to flip the puck up to, but they're like, how are you winning? Like, how, you're rigging this, you're doing this. No, because I'm teaching the details. The details is how you get, right. Hockey, for an example. It's not a game of, it's not feet, it's inches. Inches that most people can't see, the terrible mom, that tells me, she's never been on the ice and she's 300 pounds and works at Park District and tells me how to coach. You don't even see the details, right? The details are in your life. You're not out, a job, you can't get to 4, you got to get to 1. Oh, you didn't, for an example, buddy's kid, he's like, oh, he's doing math in his head. You got to show your work. Do we want to? No, but we have to. That's a detail.
Mm-hmm. But it's so crazy because it is so, and then we can go off of sports, but I mean, also bringing it back to Brad, like when you do those reps, so like Truman, yes, in basketball, there's going to be times where it's boring if you just dribble. But if you're doing if you get strong and you're left and right and you dribble and you're the best dribbler, your fucking game is going to be better than the kid that's just running around on the court. Now, and this is where I think for parents, it's like, they get tweaky is because like when you're young and you're playing and you run and okay, you can score. And if a kid's athletic, those little details are not, but then when it gets to that next level, and that's what's important, you have to get those fundamentals when they're little, because when you get to that next level, if they don't have those fundamentals, they're never going to get to that next thing. And it doesn't matter how athletic they are.
Yeah. That sports aren't sports anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You play lacrosse and field hockey and you loved it for the game. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I loved hockey for the game. Now it's a business. For hockey, $300 a stick. Most of the coaches have zero clue. I can go on, you want the Instagram stuff. Most of the stuff, they want to do the fancy, this, that. 95% of our lies.
Right.
It's stealing money. I watch this stuff, and again, it's just sad that the game of hockey and my parents, and it was for me and my friends and my teammates, the game. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the way it is now. It wasn't the money, and it was a sport. Now, when you start getting paid, everybody's like, talk about hockey. Do you still play it now? No, because it was a business. You don't see too many people who retire, when they're 65, go back and hang out at the office, all this like that. No, it's a business for me, right? It's right. They've taken the fun away from the game. No matter what sport you're talking about, football or basketball or soccer or whatever it is, they've taken the fun away because most coaches are about wins and about their paycheck and their lies, that they have no idea what they're talking about. And it goes back to, it's not for the kids.
Yeah. Well, and that's so many different, that's so much different things. And I'm going to take it back to the interview with Brad, because that's he was saying where he got his confidence. And this is what we talk about all the time. And that's what's the shame of it, is because when you get your confidence from something that is now changed, it's really tough. But the reason why I think I got also so emotional in that episode is like, you two are, I mean, MMA fighter, hockey player, like those are tough, rugged men. And it's hard to be on the side of like, you need to express it. But again, that's where the healing starts. And that's what, the society is like, oh, don't show your emotions. We've gotten a lot better, a lot better, but it is so important because we talk about stuffing, right? When you can talk openly, when you can express yourself, when you can talk about, yes, I'm not the best housewife. I put the dirty dishes in the oven. There's things that it's fine, right? But someone else might be like, oh my God, I would never admit that. I would never admit that because that shows like that I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. And I actually would never want to be perfect. I think perfect's boring. But this is what people hide behind things and just say it, right? I'm having a hard day. Like I don't know my lefts and rights. Yes, I'm 50 and I don't know my lefts and rights.
And that's what why the world is as fucked up as it is. Each one of us are our own people. Is that okay? There's no right or wrong. Does it work for you? And yesterday when I was talking to the guy about dyslexia, I was telling him about hockey. I never took a pregame nap. Every hockey player does. I think I might be the only one in the world. And I was telling him, he's like, wow, it worked for me. Now, can you look at somebody and say, oh, that's fucked up? You're right. It might be to you, but do you know what it works for them? And then, we started, we're talking about schedule. All right. Where to be and how to be and how we need that schedule to live. We can get off it in a second, but it's so hard to get back on it. And it's okay. Each one of us are our own people. And I said this to who? I don't remember the other day. Oh, it might have been Danny. You fall in love with yourself and truly love yourself, your world will never get better than it is then. And
so true.
She was like, you love yourself, and that goes back to you can say it the way it is. And yeah, a lot of people get pissed off? Yep. I'll tell you the way it is. I don't care. But you love yourself.
But it's also, it is refreshing.
Your life never gets better.
I think more people need to, and again, it's not like we're not telling people, we're true to who we are, again, because we've done a lot of healing and that's just our personality. And there's like a lot to go behind it. But to be able just to say, yeah, I'm not perfect, like the schedule thing. I think this is what was really cool also with that Brad story. His podcast is, you were talking about your routines. I was talking about my oldest routines, like since he got hurt and and I had like this aha moment because I was like, you know what? I probably should have a little bit. Sometimes I'm 5 minutes late for everything. Like that's my routine. It is, but then I was thinking about when my kids were early and I was in early motherhood. And I am like a pretty light, fun-loving person. And I was so strict. Like friends and family were like, what the fuck's happening? And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, well, you're so like, why do you have to be so regimented? And I was like, I didn't know. And it actually was, there was times where I would be like, oh, why can't I be more relaxed about this? Like I was like very regimented. And now after talking to that, even Brad was like, thank you for saying that, because in our house, this is, we kind of, him and his wife maybe have disagreements. He's like, I need it like this. And I said, when they're at a young age, it's so interesting, because I would have friends that'd be like, God, this is so weird. Like, this is weird because you are so this way, but then you don't give a shit about this, and they don't even match, and it doesn't make any sense. But it's how I was able to really, I guess, be the best mom I could be.
And that's how smart we are
out there.
You want to talk about IQ? Right. I want to sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I want to, that's how smart we are. That's how smart we are when it comes to figuring out, like, my routines. It was the most fucked up, bizarre. People laugh about it, think it was whacked up, and if I didn't do that exactly, I was horrendous. So I always talk about that was the glue that was holding my life together. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't nap. The more tired I was going into the game, the less my dyslexia and my ADHD worked. So basically, I could play and not think. But that's how smart we are to figure out what we need to get by. You know, like till this day, there's still stories and people laugh how crazy it is and how all over the place. But I had no idea. I figured that out for myself, what I needed to do. Yes. Was it crazy? Absolutely. Just like you figured out what you needed to do without even knowing what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what kept you in. I mean, and I found that really fascinating because I was like, oh, that's so interesting. You needed your brain to be tired, but physically, you knew that you could do anything physically because you were like, I could play as hard as I can, because you didn't have your, like, it's so fascinating. Like that again. And I'm going to say it, but IQ, like dyslexia has nothing to do with your IQ. Usually our IQ is higher. That fireman I met on the ski lift, he's like, yeah, I have a really, really high, like freakishly high IQ. And I said, that doesn't surprise me. And then he went off with like this giant jump and like flew into the air. And I was like, oh my God, you're totally ADD. And I can see he's a fireman. He's like, yeah, text me later. I mean, we're going to hopefully have him on the podcast because that was fascinating. But that's what it is. It is, we adapt the way we need it. And we're very introspective without sometimes realizing that we're introspective. Like that was one of the things my mom would always say, yes, I knew everything about how I worked. I can tell if I mean, even still, sometimes it's annoying. Sometimes it can be a little exhausting. Like if I eat too much sugar or if I eat certain foods, I know that doesn't work well with me. And it is, but it's also really great because then when you're going through different stages in your life and you're like, okay, I am introspective. I do know how I work because we've done the work, right? You don't realize you're doing the work, but then when you start healing and doing the work, I mean, I've said that to you so many times. I thought I healed. And then since we've done the podcast, I've had so many, like, I'm like, oh no, I'm healing even more. Like, this is crazy.
You don't stop healing. Every one of us should be going to a therapist, counselor, whatever, because life is hard. Right. And then you have kids, what is that book? Women for Venus, Men are for Mars. Like we're two different people. So life is not easy. So there's no such thing as perfect. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes better. If you're trying to be perfect, if you're trying to be a perfectionist, you've got some major childhood trauma. And every one of us needs to talk about it. Because if you don't talk about it, if you don't think you need to, you're more fucked up than everybody, right? Because the world's not easy. Marriage isn't easy. Life isn't easy. School isn't easy. There's nothing that nobody breezes through. So you'll get kids now. They want the instant gratification of, all right, I did this, I'm healed. No, you never stop healing. If you stop healing, you're toast. You don't stop growing. You're missing so much what's out there, to be able to look at it a little bit differently, to be okay. We talk about feelings. To talk about it, to have a good relationship with your partner, you got to be okay to have conversations, and you're two different people, and you have to understand to be able, again, it's going to be hard conversations, but that's like, life is not easy. Like anybody, it's not Desperate Housewives, white picket fences. Yeah, if you take some Xanax, a couple Xanax bars and some white wine, absolutely it is.
Right.
But that's why most people, I always say, sober people are most of the time the best people, because we got to self-reflect every day to stay sober. And try having sober sex all the time. It's crazy.
But it is. I mean, so many points, and I know again, we've talked about this a number of different ways on the podcast, but having like Brad on, interviewing Dan, right, who's going to be coming up in a couple months, and even him saying, the thing that I thought was really interesting, what he said is, as much as he was getting by, and I mean, he's fascinating. Wait until you guys hear this. I mean, he's basically doing stock trading in high school, but not doing great in school. But then when he went through the depression, I mean, that again is not an easy thing to talk about. We didn't dive too much into it, but the way that his dad kind of approached him and then what he realized he needed, it is these conversations, and you need to find someone to have it. You need to listen. And we've talked about this a couple of times, and we can touch on this again, but like someone might be saying, okay, I can't afford a therapist, or I don't know what to do. And I'm listening to this, and whether you're dyslexic or not, but you're struggling, you can kind of write things down. I mean, Brent, you talked about that, or voice text things like, right. I talk about using the voice app to really kind of break things down and just get things off your chest, because the stuffing is really what I don't know how you think of the stove every time. The stuffing 100%. Is really I can see your face. But the stuffing is really what fucks people, right? You can't stuff things. It's going to come out somewhere. I mean, and that's the thing. It's going to come out somewhere. And that's like, and we've all done it. We've all done it. We've all been like, I don't really like this feeling. I'm just going to put it back in my head. I'm not going to talk about it. I don't know how to approach it. I don't know. But if you can write it down or talk into your phone, because you don't want to talk to someone else.
Yeah, there's many different ways to getting out. Is that talking to a friend? Is that talking to a therapist? So when I say that, you talk, somebody might not be able to forward. Yeah, it doesn't have to be. There's different outlets. I know people that paint. You talked about writing. You can grab a piece of paper, pen, and just write. There doesn't have to be. Don't worry about spelling. It doesn't have to be sentences. That doesn't have to be period. No, just write. That's a way of not putting in the closet, as I talk about it, it's, there's many different ways, and there's no right or wrong to that. Is that working out? Is that going to yoga? Is that going on the walk, moms in the morning around the mall? There's no right or wrong. It's doing different things and finding out what works for you. If you always talk about, school and bullying and, things like that, there's always a reason why, and that's what we don't do as a society is, okay, we don't do anything about bullying. Oh, you can't do it. Okay.
I know, it's what was said. Just that tells the kids, right?
Is, it is,
it's so backwards. Everything is so
stupid. Just like, the suicide hotline, I want a number. That's not, fuck off. You're going to have been there. Yeah, we don't, it's bullshit. That's not how it works.
Right.
Bullying. Okay. You can't say that. Okay. Well, you're right. You can't say that, but what was said, why do we get there, is what we don't touch upon. We've got people in suits that are hiding behind that. They're making this, that law, and they've got no fucking idea. So it's what was said, why did we get here, what happened up to it, and educate on that. That's why, learning disorders, dyslexia, is so much embarrassment. If somebody's in a wheelchair or, somebody's blind, close your eyes, you can kind of understand what they're going through. But for us, you can't. And people want change, but you're not going to teach them what it is to be us. Mm-hmm. And that dragon, as long as you stuff it, it'll come out at some point in time. Trust me. It rears its little dragon head, and every time it rears its head, it gets bigger, better, and harder and deeper each and every time. And trust me, like I said, I was almost dead before 40, with all the drugs and alcohol. And I was trying to kill myself before then, and I didn't succeed. So it's
seriously,
life ain't easy. Life ain't easy.
Yeah. So I want to also take it to another question that I've recently had someone ask me. They said that their spouse is the one that doesn't agree, like doesn't see that their child has dyslexia, or doesn't, and they don't know where the dyslexia has come from. So I'll leave it at that as well. I have a feeling it's probably the spouse that doesn't want to acknowledge it. But that's another question. So I haven't had a chance to, we're going to actually talk this week, because she's like, can you give me some tips? But I thought this actually could be a really great conversation that you and I can have on here to help, because there's so many people out there that have that, right? Their kid's diagnosed, maybe, and then this is not a spouse. It's the child's father. So it's not, they're not married anymore. So they don't have this like great communication. I'm figuring. So what are some things that a parent that is trying to, she's like, I'm fighting the school and now I'm fighting the father. She's like, I feel like I'm fighting everyone, and it's just to help this kid. So, I mean, and I said to her, I have to think about it because I can kind of walk you through, but I don't know this person. Right. So it depends on how you want to approach it. Everyone needs to be approached a certain way.
Yeah. It's first off,
he's a Canadian.
You're divorced.
So maybe you'll know.
And settle down now. Settle down. Obviously when you're divorced, that, the co-parenting, situation isn't easy. I have them with my ex, zero, nothing there. So it's, first off, you're fighting your ex of whatever, and the school. It's control what you can control, right? And that's when you're with your kid, it's trying to understand them to the greatest detail. And so she thinks it, came from his side. So she doesn't have it. So she doesn't have the full understanding and the connection with her child. And connection means something different. It's the kid knows that you love them, but they know just that little extra that you don't have it, so you don't understand. So it's the simple things when you're at home, figuring out what, let's just use homework for an example. As soon as they get to that point, close that book. Don't force that. Have that fight with the teachers through you, not through the kid. I talked to a buddy of mine who's, divorced, having problems, payments, mom owes him money, and his daughter's high school. Hey, did you ask mom for the money? She doesn't. No, because she doesn't want to get in the middle. Right? So can't use a kid in the middle. I said to him, you may not get that money back, but it's the mental health of your kid. She doesn't want, that's mom, that's dad. I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want, it sucks. Mm-hmm. So it's learning what your kid is and doing what you can when you're with them. It's the homework, the self-esteem, finding what they like and going doing that fun. You're Disneyland dad, right? Make that Disneyland time with your kid, and it's not buying them. It's know what makes them happy, where they get that self-esteem from. Is it going out and building a snowman? Is it going out and going for a walk, or it's, when Montgomery was little, walk around the city pointing at signs, or you going with Penelope to a bookstore. So what is it with that kid, with your kid? Mm-hmm. So that's, grow that, and that will become a very, very special, safe place for them, in so many ways that you'll never understand, by just those little things, at home, not getting frustrated with them. Yes, you might be fucking frustrated as hell, and mark my word, you're going to be trying to, battling through it to help finish this, or I asked you to do all this. If you can bring that back down, okay, and kind of walk with them. Those little things become their safe space in ways you'll never understand because you're not on the side of the road.
Mm-hmm. And I think the thing with the homework, I think, is a really good, and all the tips that you just gave is really important. But again, right, if the one parent is not dyslexic, helping the kid through it by understanding, okay, this is like,
even if you're married and still together, wife or husband, they don't have it. They don't understand. So it's going to be a fight, divorced or together, no matter what. So it's doing what you're saying.
Yeah. And being aware, like watching your kid and seeing the cues. And this is so hard. And I was not good at this. I mean, we talk about, when Montgomery, I'm having him do his homework and I'm cooking and the dogs are running around, the kids are screaming. He's like, I can't focus. And I was like, what do you mean? Why can't you focus? Now that's an ADHD mom being like, what are you talking about? Just go ahead, do it. And this is obviously when we didn't realize that he was struggling as much as he was, but not doing things where there's a lot of distraction around, so you can really read your child and feel their cues. Like if they all of a sudden tighten up, or like you can see them itching their head or doing something. I just read somewhere that this little kindergartner, he started chewing on his sleeve, and the mom was like, he's never chewed on his sleeve. I think, and she thinks he's dyslexic. He hasn't gotten tested yet. And I was like, oh my God, that just brought me to like, because I know, like I had a nephew that did the same thing, right? When school started they started chewing on their like shirt, and everyone's like, why is he chewing on his shirt? He has all these holes in
Their
it.
nails,
like,
or they got hangnails, or start chewing. All those little signs, or I don't want to go to school, I got a bellyache, or my stomach hurts. These are all major signs of anxiety, right? So it's right. I feel bad. What's that? I'm a jack of all trades, a master of none. Moms, and I'm obviously not one. I'm going to come back. My next life is my ex-wife, but then you can read through this. But it's, yes, you have a lot on your plate. Yes, with the kids, 100%. But staying present is the hardest, most important thing in the world. It's hard. Mm-hmm. And then you got to feel those feelings, and this kid, and I got to make dinner. I got to, I didn't do this. Oh, you have 50 things to do today. That's not realistic. You're not being nice to yourself. So in a relationship, man or woman, if you're not nice to yourself, how are you expecting your spouse to be nice to you? I humanly can't do 50. I got 10 things I need on my list. Okay. I didn't get through. All right. I got through this.
Yeah. It is. And it's those little things just to kind of into things. So that's what I was kind of saying to her. But I love that you said you gotta know what to fight and what not to. You can't control the other person. You have to kind of control yourself. And we've also had, conversations with, and Brad even talked about it. He was panicked that his kid was going to be dyslexic. So he really started drilling him with like reading and being like, no, you have to do it. You have to do it. And I've had conversations with a couple people, this family, and the dad didn't realize he was dyslexic until I think we kind of talked. And that was an interesting revelation. But he also was like, oh shit. He's like, okay, I don't want him to go through what I went through in school. So I really have been drilling him. I'm like, no, but it's not you didn't get lack of resources. Like, right. Like, no, he's dyslexic. So that is tough. So now you're making him feel like he's not going to be able to do it. Like, you just pause, breathe. That's what I said to him. And he didn't really appreciate me that much. It was the beginning. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. But pause and breathe, because that's what's like, you're not going to be able to make your dyslexic kid not dyslexic. Right. So if you are the dyslexic parent and you're panicked, oh my God, I don't want them to go through, they're going to go through stuff, but you can make it less. Like Montgomery's gone through less stuff. Lila's gone through less stuff, right, than we went through. But they're still going to go through stuff. I mean, but if you can be there as their support and their love and their advocate and really help them through it as much as you can by being present, as you said, is really important.
And I don't think any parent, I want my kid to struggle. Yeah, I go good. No, so I'm going to defend all the, non-dyslexics, in this conversation too, is we got to put ourselves in their shoes as, let's just say,
yeah.
As if I was married to something, because they don't understand, and they're seeing their kids struggle, and they don't want to. They want them to not struggle so bad, right? And now they're going over the top, right? But let's see where it came from. So that's coming from a great place too. So I think you have to have some of the understanding of the other side too. All right, I understand. Again, it's not easy to find that route or to stop, but nobody's like, and like my daughter got in a car accident. I should have went if I would have known. Yeah, no shit, rocket science. If I would have known I'm going to get an accident, I wouldn't have gone that way. I know if I was going to do this. Yeah, that's a crystal ball that we don't hang it, you know? Hindsight's 2020. You can't change the past, can't change the future, only now.
Yep. No, it's so true. And I kind of want to leave this with a couple different because we haven't done statistics in a while. And so if someone's just starting to listen to this, dyslexics 1 in 5, it is hereditary.
Yeah. So with ADHD.
And I know, yeah. 100%. I just actually had a conversation with someone the other day. Like, I think I'm a little dyslexic. And I was like, okay, you have kids. Does anyone struggle? And they were like, oh, actually, that you said that. And I was like, it is dyslexia is hereditary. And if you're 50% of your kids, could have some sort of learning difference. And ADHD too. It's deep, and especially if you know the lineage. I mean, that's my favorite thing, right? I'm like, oh wait, who in your family has it? I love to play that game. Not everyone loves to play my games.
Where did it come from? Where did that come from? Like Miss Triager over there. Where did this come from? Where was this growing? Same thing.
I know. I love that. So that's one of the things. The other thing that I think just recently we've talked about and is so important, that 50, and again, I think this is 56% of people in prison.
Yeah, about 50%. 50% of people in prison in the world are dyslexic. And then there's 50% of people. That's millions and millions and millions of people are in prison because they can't read. But then you have 50% of people in NASA are dyslexic. I think it's 40% of self-made millionaires are dyslexic. So it's this or this. There's no in between with us. Kind of like you like me or don't. There's no in between. You like me or not.
There's no in between.
There's no in between.
Dyslexia. There's no in between. We're all.
And let me tell you, if I don't like you, you know it. So I'm the same way. But it's just like. Suicides have tripled in teenagers in the last 10 years. 90% of the suicide notes left have dyslexic tendencies.
Yeah. I mean, I want you guys to really think about those statistics. And one of the reasons why you've been doing what you've been doing for as long as you were with the charity, the Brent Sopel Foundation, 6 years, is because if you have money and you're able to get resources, some people have money, they don't realize their child's dyslexic, but then they are able to go get that neuropsych. They have the resources. They can, send them to a private school and get some remediation. And, that kid's trajectory of life is going to go a little different. If you don't have money and you also don't know how to advocate, I mean, this is the thing that kills me. It makes me so sick to my stomach. And we talk about this often. We talk about with all the people, like the panel that we talk twice a month with, that we'd sit around and brainstorm about different things, is if you don't have the money and you don't have a strong family unit and you're a kid that's just being brushed under the rug, like those are the kids that are going to really suffer. And there's two things here. They're going to suffer and they could go down the prison route. They also, because again, dyslexia are very smart. We're the creative thinkers. We're like the ones that come up, the visionaries, all these really cool things. We're also missing out on someone that could actually change the world in a different way. And that's, it's so many different, you could look at it both ways, right? That kid's going to go down a bad path, but it's also the path that, like, his good path could have been where he's changing everything. He could have been a NASA. I mean, so many things. This place has to change. We have to change the face of dyslexia because, and through education and talking and the understanding, because there's so many people that are just kind of going through life or in prison because they were not identified, and they think they're dumb and they don't want to stand.
Oh. There's so many things, so many ways I can go with this. Obviously, if you're rich, dyslexia can be a gift. If you're poor, it's a curse. And when I say can be is, just had dinner with somebody a couple weeks ago. Their brothers came along and said, "Oh shit, I got to take this call." It was his son calling from prison. He's in prison. He was selling drugs, And so he came back. I'm like, I didn't know this as he's taking his call. My buddy's telling me about it. Came back, I started talking about it, and he said, yeah, he was diagnosed with LD, learning differences. I'm like, well, and I started telling him, I'm like, that's dyslexic. They can't use the word dyslexia in certain states. He had all the money. He's a doctor, but he didn't connect. He was never understood in his house. Goes back to earlier time. Yeah, didn't have yelled at for got to work harder, right? Start yelling every time. You're not working hard. You're lazy. Stop being stupid. And he's 31 years old, 6 years, in prison. So it's not only, even if you do have money, and that's why it can be a gift, because all we want to do is be loved. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you're from. Your white, brown, pink, blue, black. We just want to be loved. And a kid wanted to be loved, and he felt like he was letting his dad down. And I can't say his mom because she wasn't there. Wasn't there. They just wanted to be loved, and that's why we turn to drugs and alcohol. 70% of us are addicted to drugs and alcohol, is to escape that pain. That's why I said I loved my drugs and alcohol. It was amazing. I didn't have to feel these feelings. So it's that understanding, it's that connection, it's that relatability. So it's easier for us to go down that bad path, to get tied up in the wrong people, because we're already halfway there with the dyslexia.
And I'm going to leave it at that. Look at you closing it out. That was good. Even though we could talk, we could go on and on and on.
We go to some deep rabbit holes.
We do. We love our rabbit holes. You guys, thank you again for listening to Word Blindness. And as Brent said earlier, rate, review, but share. Share is the most important, because you don't know who needs to hear this. You don't know who's like, wait, I didn't realize the statistics that we just did at the end. There's someone that, in your family, neighbor, that their son, daughter just got diagnosed and the parents don't have understanding. They don't know what to do in the IEP. They don't know how to approach the teachers. They don't know how to talk about it. These are all of the things that we have talked about. I think this is going to be episode 24, if I'm not mistaken. It might be 23. I mean, right? And we've now connected. We've been doing this since April. I think I asked you in March and you said no, or you didn't say no. You kind of ignored me. And
I played hard to get.
Oh, come on, you did play hard to get, and I wasn't letting go. So I wasn't taking the cues.
It's the chase, honey.
Exactly. And so that is why we do this, though, because of these stories and what we talk about on the podcast every day, but what we also talk about and the messages that we're getting from people behind the scenes thanking us for doing what we're doing. I mean, again, Brent's been doing this for the last 6 years, and now we're able to kind of get this message out to even a broader through this podcast, Word Blindness. So thank you again for joining, and we will see you for the next episode.